Okay. Well, hello and welcome everybody. So hopefully you're having a good summit so far. I'm not sure how much has been, how many sessions there have been, but thank you for joining us today. So this workshop is an introduction to Amazon ECS, as well as deploying containers to Amazon ECS using AWS Fargate. So we're going to start with, we'll do a high-level introduction of what is Amazon ECS, what is Fargate, what's a container, what does that look like? And then we're going to dive into some hands-on content where we're going to actually build, as you can see on my screen here, hopefully, we're going to build an application. It's going to be a 3-tier polyglot application. So there's going to be multiple containers that are running different programming languages. And we're going to hopefully have this image that you see here in our front end web app that we deploy. So maybe we should start with just a quick introduction.
Yeah.
So my name's Adam Keller. I am a developer advocate on the containers services team here at AWS. I like to talk all things containers, all things DevOps, and any way to move fast and get rid of all the roadblocks. That's what I like to focus on. So Brent, why don't you go ahead and say hello?
I'm Brent Langston. I'm also a developer advocate, and I'm here to help out. So Adam is going to be the main driver today, but I'm certainly here to help answer questions and that kind of thing. And to that end, I actually would like to take a quick second and let's do a quick tour of the workshop interface. If you are looking at us, then you found the video. Congratulations. At the bottom of the workshop page, you'll see that there are 2 buttons: workshop support / feedback, and then also video. And you can pop out the video and make it, a completely separate window. If you're at home and you have a nice, dual monitor setup or something, maybe you want to put us somewhere else. So that's totally doable. The workshop feedback button is useful, and let's run through that just real quick. On the left, you'll see there is a section for resources, and you have a free credit code there. And that credit code is going to give you $20 in your AWS account. So we know that for this workshop, for learning ECS, we want you to be able to do that with some time to spare and all that kind of stuff. So we want to make sure that you have money and you get to learn on us. The thing is, don't forget to clean up your resources at the end of all of this. So don't just leave things running, because $20 will run out eventually. To apply your credit code, you see there's a click here button, and it will take you over to the AWS console, where the billing page where you can enter your credit code. So get logged in, enter your code, you should be good to go. On the right side of this workshop support feedback section is a line where you can share your feedback. And in that field, if you type in a message and you hit submit, I'm going to see that. That's going to come back in to me, and I can then hopefully relay anything necessary to Adam. I'm helping out, with Adam as he's delivering this workshop. So that's sort of your conduit to give us overall workshop feedback. There is a better way, however, if you just need help and you want to ask a question. So to ask a question, you see the button below the entry field. It says need help, join the workshop chat room. And that's going to actually pop open a Discord chat room where we have people standing by that are going to be able to answer your questions. And they can help you either by voice or by typing, whichever is more comfortable for you. So we want to encourage you to ask all the questions that you want to ask, and you'll be able to get answers from container experts here at AWS that they know everything there is to know. I'm totally setting them up for all the hard questions. So definitely send the hard questions their way. They will deliver for sure. There's also a survey button, and we're gonna remind you about halfway through about the survey. So we want to encourage overall feedback for the workshop, and we learn from that, and we try to improve the material, the platform, everything about this workshop. So that's the tour of the platform. And I don't know, Adam, you think we're ready to dive into the material?
I think so. That was a good tour, and I apologize. I didn't have the workshop open until halfway through. You were speaking, but anyways, I was able to at least show as you were walking through most of it. So
yeah,
I think we're in pretty good shape. Yeah,
sweet.
So yes, feedback is important. So please do, when you get a chance, take that survey. It's really important to us. Helps us out to improve. So okay, let's get started. So as I said, we're gonna start with just going through an introduction. We'll talk about what ECS is. You'll hear the abbreviation. ECS stands for Elastic Container Service. This is our fully managed container orchestration platform service in AWS. We'll talk about what that is, but let's start with just why containers, in the first place. I think it's important to have a general understanding of, why people are moving to containers, why they're so popular, and why, frankly, we talk about this a lot, Brent, but containers are kind of becoming the new de facto standard for compute. We've, in the past few years, when Docker first came out, I don't know, 2014, 2015, maybe earlier. I honestly, I've lost track of all time.
15 feels right.
That sounds right. I remember it. I was so excited about it. And I remember deploying my first container to a production environment, and holy cow, we were able to go from, deployment windows, prior to containers, it took us, to get something deployed, it would take, we have like these deployment windows. We go every 3 weeks on a Friday at 6 p.m. We would deploy. It would take hours, huge changes all bundled into one commit, this huge feature release.
Well, let's back up from there, though, because you're touching on a couple of different things that Docker solves for us, right? One is it gives us a uniform way to package up our software. And then two is it gives us a uniform way to get it out there onto our servers and get it to run. And so you don't have to figure out, like, for Python, how do I build a venv? And for Node, how do I do whatever the equivalent of that is in Node? Like, I don't even know, because I don't have to worry about it anymore, because I can just shove it all in a container and know that it's going to run the exact same way wherever I happen to put it. And I can get it onto the server the exact same way, no matter the language. I can Docker pull, I can Docker run, and then I know it's going to be up and running and working. At that point, it's just software, right? It's just the same as every other, like if I had gone and installed it natively. So that's really what Docker helps us with. And so your deploys, you're talking about deploys that, would just be massive and would take a lot of time. How did Docker improve that situation for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And great points. So, and I think the key there is that the standardization of this new way of packaging your software, where, you don't have to think about, I have a server running. I have to think of, if I have different versions of my Ruby application running, how do I manage that on the same server? That's complex and complicated and hard. Now with containers, you have that isolation. So containers, right, they share the operating system. So imagine, you know, rather than having to figure out how to install all these packages on the same operating system, you look at your container as your new way of packaging your application, your configurations, your operating system, all your dependencies, and it's standalone. It's completely isolated from other containers running on the system. So, in short, containers, while they share that underlying operating system and the underlying resources on that operating system, the CPU, the memory, and so on, they're resource isolated, and you don't have to worry about this contention of versioning and kind of all the complexities that go with that. So solves a lot of problems that we were dealing with prior to containers being mainstream, right?
Yeah, totally.
And I think the other thing is with that packaging standardization, which is, by the way, we do this through a Docker file, right? A Docker file is a very simple way to define the instructions as to how you want your application to run. Here's my code. Here's the operating system I want that code to run on. And here are the dependencies I need in order for my code to run. That's it. So with that experience, I can build that Docker image. So when you take that Docker specification in that Docker file, you build a Docker image, and from there, you're able to test locally on your laptop and have the same experience that you would of that container running in production.
Yeah.
Right? It's that same experience.
Yeah. So if you're on the typical customer journey when it comes to containers, the typical journey is you've written your application. And next up is like, okay, well, how do I make this run the same everywhere? Like you're bringing on additional developers or something like that. You want to make sure that the experience is the same on everyone's laptop or on the server or wherever it happens to be. And you realize Docker can help answer that. Packaging up your software into a container is the answer for that. So the next step from there might be, okay, well, now we need it to run. We want to get this out into production. We need to get traffic into it. We need it to be able to respond to traffic. So we're just going to build some servers, and we're just going to launch our containers on those servers. And so you might find yourself, with a fleet of servers, 3, 4, 10, 30, who knows how many. And on each of them, you have to figure out a way to automate Docker run. So maybe Docker pull to get the container onto the server, and then Docker run to make it come up so that your application is running and able to take traffic. Of course, that alone you could stop there, like that's enough. You're now able to take traffic. But what people started realizing is there's more to it. Instead of, now that I have this sort of fleet of servers, instead of having one process per server, which is, historically the way things were done, I can instead have 2, have 3, have 4, have 10, however many I want to have. And that actually will then start to allow me to shrink the fleet and have more processes that can work independently of each other on that same server. What that leads to is something we call orchestration. So orchestration there's packaging, Docker takes care of that for us. And then there's orchestration, which is just make my processes run. And in our case, those processes are Docker containers. So you see how all of this fits together. With ECS, what we have is a cloud-based service offered up that orchestrates your containers. So instead of you having to run your own orchestrator and manage your own orchestrator, you get orchestration as a service using ECS. So talk to me, Adam. What's great about ECS?
Well, so I mean, you nailed it, right? when you get, oh, go ahead.
What
Go
version
ahead.
of ECS are we going to learn today?
Oh, yes, this is my favorite question. Oh, man, you teed that up. I'm going to knock this one out of the park. Well, this is the great part about ECS. So Brent and I have experience prior to working at AWS. We've built and managed orchestrators on our own. And with that, you have to think of versioning. I have to think of versioning from the control plane. And when I say control plane in an orchestrator, this is literally when you have an orchestra, you have the conductor, right? Who's conducting, making sure everyone's playing exactly how they're supposed to play with each other. That's the job of the orchestrator. So ECS, though, is fully managed. AWS fully manages that control plane. So when Brent said, what version are we running on? I don't know. And I don't care. That's the best part. And so with that, so let's give an example. We add features and enhancements to ECS all the time. So when those happen, when we add a new feature or new enhancement, you don't have to upgrade the control plane. It's just there. So I think that's probably the biggest benefit of using ECS is the operational overhead is completely obfuscated from me as the operations person or the developer that's deploying to this cluster. So on top of that, just, one other thing I want to add, and then I think let's just get right into it. We'll get hands-on.
Yeah.
Is ECS has deep integrations with the AWS ecosystem. So it's very common. You get to a point where you need to run your containers, and besides the basic benefits of an orchestrator, which is ensuring that, for example, I want to have 5 replicas of this container running at all times. That's the job of ECS. It's going to make sure that if I say I want 5 are running, and if not, they're going to be running.
So instead of having 5 servers that are each running one copy of your container, we could have 3 servers, and we just tell ECS run 5 copies, and it'll locate them wherever they'll fit, right? Inside those 3 servers. And then on top of that, it'll orchestrate the load balancer, and it'll tell the load balancer, send that traffic to these 5 containers. Here's how you find them. And if a container should die, it'll, fire up a replacement, update the load balancer, and once that replacement is healthy, it'll start sending traffic to that new healthy container as well.
Yes.
So I love your analogy of the conductor and the orchestra, because that's totally what it's like, is there's just this higher level service that is mindful of everything and how it all fits together. And another thing that's really cool about it all is, in the old days, you used to have to use something like Chef or Puppet, or maybe even something older than that. And you would have to describe every single component and how it needed to be. And then those config management tools would have to work to get you there. And you would have to lay out the entire path, every step that needed to be taken. With ECS, you don't have to do that. You just describe the end result that you're looking for. The end result is I need 5 of these running. Or the end result is I need at least minimum 2 just to make sure that I'm always resilient, but auto scale this for me. As more traffic comes in, crank the number up. As traffic goes away, lower the number back down. So that's the kind of thing that you can get out of orchestration, and all you're ever doing is describing the result, what you're looking for, not all the steps of how to get there.
Yes. Honestly, you and I could talk about this for 2 hours. Let's be real. Okay. So I'm gonna move forward. But again, we have some really amazing people in the Discord. So if you do want to chat, ask questions, please reach out in Discord.
Yeah. And real quick, just to, in case anyone joined late, let's run through the controls one more time for anyone that just joined. Adam, can you show us the workshop tab again?
Yes.
Cool. So at the bottom of the screen, you see two buttons, video. That's probably, if you're hearing us and seeing us, that's the tab that you're looking at, and you're able to pop that out and look at it separately. The blue button, that's where you can provide us feedback and you can tell us live. In fact, someone already has done that. They asked, can you increase the font size? And we did. So that worked. It's great. And then if you want to ask questions, there's a button that says need help, join the workshop chat room. And that's where you can ask questions. So this is also where you'll get your credit code to be able to add into your own AWS account. And that'll get you $20 of credit, which should be good for at least a couple of days of running this particular workshop. And then again, don't forget to clean up your resources when you're all done. And we'll make sure as we go through things to show you how to do that. So let's dive in. Let's get started.
Perfect. Yes. So thanks for that, Brent. So to start the workshop, we are going to build. So by the way, here on the left side, let's go to start the workshop, and we're going to go straight to create a workspace. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a Cloud9 workspace. Cloud9 is simply a cloud IDE, an interactive development environment, but it's a fully managed AWS IDE. So essentially what we'll do is we'll select the Oregon region. However, if you're in Virginia, if you're in Ohio, or you're closer to those regions, you can select those as well. So you select your region of choice, and we will then drill down here. We'll click this link, which is going to take us to Cloud9. We're going to click Create Environment. And I'm going to run through this pretty quickly, just because this is kind of boilerplate stuff. So we're going to name it ECS Workshop. And then we're going to click Next Step. We're going to leave all the defaults. We're just going to change the instance type to T3 small. And then we're going to click Next Step. One cool thing about Cloud9, though, is this cost-saving feature. It'll automatically turn off after 30 minutes of inactivity. You can always change this, but just in case you forget, you leave it on, that's okay. After 30 minutes, we're going to shut it down for you, so you're not paying for idle compute.
Nice.
And then let's just click Create Environment. So we click Next, Create Environment. Our IDE is going to come up. It's going to take maybe 60 seconds, 2 minutes. Yeah. Not too long.
And let's just talk about real quick then, we'll use that time. The reason we're doing this is so you don't have to install a bunch of stuff onto your laptop, or you don't have to, some people that try to do this workshop, they realize that to install software, they need administrator privileges on their laptop, and they don't have it. So this is a way for us to give you a fully working environment where you have all the privileges that you need. And then when you're completely done with it, you can just throw it away, and it'll be done. And you've never had to change your everyday driver.
Perfect. Yes. So we're going to just close out these tabs here at the top, and actually we'll close the bottom, and then we're just going to hit a plus here, and we'll do new terminal. So now we have our terminal. So going back to the instructions here, this is what our workspace looks like. And now what we're going to do is we are going to create an IAM role, and then we're going to attach that IAM role to the EC2 instance. And the idea here is we want to give the entire EC2 instance permissions to create all of the resources that we're about to create. So rather than having to use keys, and put keys around, we don't like that. So we're going to attach it to the IAM role. So we'll follow this link. This link is going to take us to IAM. It's going to give us the defaults that we need. So you should just hit next, because you'll see AWS Service EC2. And then permissions, you're going to find administrator access, which again should be checked already. Click next. No need to add any tags. And then you're going to name the role ECS Workshop Admin. Oops. ECS Workshop Admin. I already have a role, so it's going to error out. So click
You've done this
role.
before?
Once or twice. So anyway, I'll just do that for now, and then click Create Role. This is going to create that IAM role, And now the next step is we'll want to attach that to our EC2 instance that Cloud9 created, which is where our IDE is running. So again, follow this deep link. It'll take us to all of our EC2 instances. And we should see here is our instance.
Nice.
Pretty nice, pretty slick.
Mm-hmm.
So you can click actions here. We're going to modify instance settings. Nope, I'm sorry. Lied. Security. Modify IAM role. And again, we will attach the ECS Workshop admin role to this instance. So if you're testing this in an account that has like production workloads and stuff, probably not a good idea. You know, just be careful if you are, right? Obviously, don't do anything too crazy. Just stick within the workshop, what we're doing. Okay.
And that advice is that's just good advice for everyday living. You know,
Absolutely.
like don't log into your production account unless you absolutely have to. Do things in a separate dev account. So that's a good way to live. It's
just, you know, we all make mistakes, and I make a lot of them. So I'd rather do that in an account that's not important.
Yeah, I should have said, ask me how I know that.
So true. Oops, I deleted a production instance. My bad. Okay, so next, just go back to your Cloud9 instance, your IDE, click the little cog at the top, go down to AWS settings. We're going to turn off AWS managed temporary credentials. Cloud9 actually has a really cool feature set where it will, based on the user that's logged in to Cloud9, it will dynamically generate credentials. Really cool. We just turn that off in case we have any long-running processes, because there is a timeout that can occur with that. Long-running like API calls. So just turn that off, and we're going to move on to the next step. So I need to move a little faster here. We're going to install JQ. We do a lot of stuff with JQ. This is just a way to parse JSON output.
And can you make that font bigger as well?
Yes. Thank you for letting me know. So I always get hung up on this.
I know.
Preferences. Let's go
user. Yeah.
And then terminal. Let's see.
They've moved it around, I think. Oh, that looks good. Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, and then let's also, I'm not using the code editor. I don't think so. Okay. All right, so we're just going to run through these steps. So I would say just in the create a workspace, feel free to go, faster than me. But basically just a lot of copy paste. And in a nutshell, what we're doing is we're just setting some credentials in our bash profile.
Yeah, we're just setting up like you said, the bash profile to be able to be aware of what our region is by default and what our what else do we do? Account ID is by default. So we'll use that in a couple of places later in the workshop, and we just like to set it here up front so that we know as we work on additional modules down the road that it's already set and taken care of for us.
Yes, and I'm just going to do something really quick because this kind of drives me nuts. If source, okay, that's fine. Anyway, okay. So the last thing before you proceed, just validate the IAM role works by running this command. It should return IAM role valid. This is just ensuring that you have that admin role that we created. It's attached to the instance. You have the permissions you need. Once you do that, there is this quick little snippet of code that's going to install the Boto 3, which is basically the Python SDK to interact with AWS APIs. We're just going to increase the disk space on this instance to 30 gigs. It comes with 10 gigs as a default. We just need a little more. So
30 sounds good.
Start. Yeah. So once this it's going to reboot the instance. It should be back up in like a minute or so. And then we're ready to get started.
Sweet.
So If there's any questions or you run into any issues, again, reach out in chat. You can hit the feedback button. You can hit up our team in the Discord chat as well.
Yeah, nice. Well, let's talk about what we're going to deploy. So we're deploying some microservices, and I mean, everyone does that these days. So what does our app look like? Our app is basically a front end with 2 backend APIs. And so we're going to have traffic coming in and hitting our front end application. And then our front end, for every request that comes in to fulfill it, it's going to try and make a call out to each of those backend APIs. And that is the typical 3-tier. So the 3rd tier tends to be the database, but we don't have a database. So 2 of the 3 tiers, but the typical 3-tier layout. And yeah, that's what we're going to get deployed today.
Yes, and basically the web application is just going to dynamically show us in real time what container we're talking to, what the IP address of that container is, what availability zone it's in, as well as what Git hash it's running. So the idea is by the end of the workshop, we should see this application in real time, what backend APIs it's talking to, what availability zone they're on, what IP address they're in as well, or they're using as well. Okay, so in this workshop, we're going to go through all the sections of deploying the microservices, and you'll see multiple tabs here. We're going to stick with the Copilot CLI tab. So if you're new to ECS, or if you're not new to ECS and you're just here because you want to just get a refresher.
I was going to say, I know where you're going, and you're talking to me. I'm not new to ECS.
But you love the Copilot CLI, don't you?
I do. I use Copilot for everything. So go on.
So, and I want to quickly talk about that. So Brett and I, when we were talking earlier, we mentioned servers, with ECS and all that. But generally, with AWS Fargate is a managed serverless compute offering where essentially I say, here's my container image. I want to deploy it to ECS, but I don't want to manage the underlying EC2 virtual machines to figure out how to, schedule my containers on them. I have to think about patching the instances, rotating them out when I have new updates, and so on and so forth. Fargate eliminates all of that. It simply manages the EC2 for me.
I just realized in what we described earlier, talking about how ECS is the orchestrator and manages what is going to run where, and it's like the conductor. Fargate is sort of like that, but for the compute. Instead of bringing 5, earlier we were talking about 5 EC2 instances. You wouldn't even have to do that anymore. Fargate will just take care of that for you. And it's almost like a just-in-time compute delivery platform.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes. And it's, by the way, so stick with the Copilot CLI tab. Just copy the install setup prerequisites, paste them into the terminal. We're just installing some of the prereqs. Now, also, let's run through this. Let's clone these repos. These are all the different applications we're going to deploy. So copy that, paste it in your terminal. It's going to clone all the different services that we'll be deploying. Now, this leads to deploying our platform. So the way we've built the workshop is into essentially 4 sections. One, and this is, by the way, when we first started the workshop, which Brent, you created this workshop, my goodness, a couple years ago already. It's evolved quite a bit since you created it. And
yeah.
But when it was first created, you had to think about creating the platform, which was what is the platform? Go ahead, Brent.
It's all of the underlying infrastructure you need. You need to start with a VPC. You need to add in 6 subnets. You need to add in, or maybe 4 if you're only going to be in 2 availability zones. You need to add in an internet gateway. You need to add in some routes. You need to set your DHCP configuration. Come on. This is the cloud. right? So yeah, you have to do all of that somehow. Um, so what do
Well,
we have? What do we have today?
yeah. So, and look, I've done this in the past. And so earlier, when we were talking about whether you're new to ECS or you're not new to ECS, I can tell you, I have built and managed environments where I've had to build the VPC. I've had to build the routing tables, security groups, NAT gateways, internet gateways, all of these things. And frankly, it can be tedious and kind of a pain, right?
Right.
So for me, unless I have to, so there are instances where I have to be super granular and I have to like create these components on my own. But most of the time I don't want to. And frankly, I will tell you, for a lot of use cases, there's a good chance you probably don't have to if you're building and deploying in AWS. So Copilot takes care of all of this for me. Okay. And when we talk about Copilot, we often will call it or reference it as an opinionated CLI, an opinionated tool. And when we say opinionated, what that means is built into this CLI is all of the good practices that we at AWS recommend for our users to do, but we do it for you.
Yeah.
So Copilot will build that VPC for you. It's going to build the IAM roles, which, by the way, if you've built IAM roles and policies, that's a pain, right?
Yeah.
And again, there are times we have to do it. But if I don't have to, and if I have a tool that's going to do it based on best practices, I'm going to let the AWS folks who know this in and out do that for me, so I don't have to make the mistakes and iterate over and over again. So that's all built into the Copilot CLI. And on top of that, the Copilot CLI takes a lot of other aspects of getting your application productionized and handles that for you, like creating a CI/CD pipeline. So this is something I've done a lot of in the past as well. It's really great. It's cool. But
Right.
frankly, I'm over that. I don't want to have to build that if I don't have to. Copilot does it as well.
This is one of those things where you take the years and years and years of history of AWS customers building VPCs, and you look back on that history and you realize, 98% of them did it the exact same way. They wrote virtually the same code, the same set of instructions to be able to build their VPC. So why would we still make customers do that? So that's what Copilot sort of lets us skip past. Let's just build that into the tool. And you're right, occasionally there might be, that 2% of the time when you need to deviate from what's normal, and you still have those paths open to you. You can still go do that. But I'll take the 98% of the time, that boilerplate every time, because that means I don't have to do that. And I'll instead, just I'll make my application fit those parameters. And the nice thing about doing that is there's a team of people that are going to continue to maintain this into the future, and I don't have to. So as it continues to get better and better and more versions come out and features get added and all that, I can simply update the Copilot tool and get all of that stuff for free. I don't have to worry about, how do I go and update my code and make all of those features, exist in my code.
Yes. And so Copilot is generally available, by the way. So one question, Brett and I, by the way, we host a show on Twitch, on YouTube, called Containers from the Couch. And we talk a lot we talk about different services in the container world, and we demo a lot with Copilot. And the question I get asked is, what is Copilot production ready? And absolutely. The answer is absolutely yes. So as we continue to iterate, so, Brett made a good point. It just gets better and better. So when the tool first came out, we didn't have the ability to import a VPC into, if you needed to use an existing VPC, that support wasn't there. Well, it is now. So as we get customer feedback, we improve the tool based off of what our customers are looking for. So that was a big ask from our customers. We added it. So, and there's so much more built into the tool that we're not going to get into today, but I do recommend checking out the website. There's this AWS GitHub. Actually, Brent, if you can post that in there.
Yeah.
But it goes through a lot of the different functionalities that come with Copilot. It's really amazing. Okay, let's go. Let's deploy our front end. So after you've installed, configured the tools, you have the service repos. We get to skip the platform step, which is wonderful. We're going to go straight to deploying our application. Now, we'll navigate to the directory for our front end service, and we're going to run a Copilot init. So one of the most amazing aspects of this tool is that Copilot offers a guided experience. Okay, so it's going to walk me through by asking me some simple questions as to how I want to get my application deployed. And really quick, let's just do a quick overview. With Copilot, we have the concept of an application. An application encompasses your environments, which could be like test, prod, staging, as well as your services. So a service, for example, here is going to be our front end. That's going to be one service. Then we'll have our two back-end services, but those all live under the same application. So it gives us a really easy way to have insight into how we're deploying everything and how everything correlates and works together.
That's good. I like to think of applications corresponding to the teams, the humans that work on them. So if you're on a service team, then you're likely managing a set of microservices, and all of those collectively tend to be the application that you provide.
Yes. So it asks us next what type of service or what type of workload we want to deploy. So this workload is going to be our front end load balanced web service. Then it's going to ask us what we want to name the service, ECS demo front end. Another really cool thing it does, it's going to navigate through my repository, through my local file system, and it's going to say, hey, I see Docker files. Are any of these the Docker files you want to deploy? Do you want a custom path, or do you want to use an existing image? Maybe you have a team that manages all of your Docker images in-house. So do you want to use something else? But I'm going to use the Docker file here, and that's it. So if you notice, it also said it's listening on port 3000. So Copilot was able to figure out from my Docker file that I'm exposing port 3000, and it knows that, okay, we need to make sure that when this application gets deployed to the load balancer, that it's going to set this container port to expose on port 3000. So the load balancer knows to talk to the backend. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. Let me actually check my settings here.
This means I get to... Did you run out of VPCs?
Oh, I think I did. Brent, let's see. Man, this is the best part of doing it live is you run through these. Let me just check my settings really quick, make sure I turned off the AWS settings. I did. Let's turn that off too. Oops. Okay. Try that again. Okay. So that was strange. And then we got the doing it live banner, of course. Things happen. So funny enough, I just did this prior to the workshop. So I imagine this was just a one-off thing. We'll see. If not, I'm going to switch regions where I have this deployed. It could just be an account problem as well. So were you going to say something?
I was just speculating. I'm waiting to see did it get this far last time?
I think so. I think it may have timed out.
Okay. Okay. Let's check. So let's check CloudFormation. So this is a good time. Let's troubleshoot. It's a good time to learn what Copilot is doing behind the scenes. It's actually pushing a CloudFormation stack to CloudFormation. And when something like this happens, there it is. Yeah, you can go to CloudFormation and you can see what's the detail behind the error. So it's trying to, this is because this already exists in somewhere in your account. in probably a different region.
Yep. And so again, that's another great point is this is all built using, so I'm going to delete this. It uses CloudFormation on the back end. So CloudFormation is just a way to manage the state of my environments that I deploy in AWS. So Brent had a great point. Something went wrong with the way I deployed it. Okay, we were able to figure it out just by simply going to the CloudFormation console. I was able to see exactly where it failed. So we're good to go. Generally, you don't have to go to this step. But frankly, I'm glad this happened because that was an extra little bonus.
And this isn't something that would normally happen with a customer. It would happen with us developer advocates because we tend to shoot around to lots of different regions because of our employee account limits being so low. So by the way, in Discord, if you're out there working along, in fact, a couple of the Copilot authors are in Discord there to answer questions, and one of them is making fun of Adam right now. So,
which one is it's David, isn't it?
It's Austin.
Austin's making that's a David move. I'm surprised. Well, thank you, Austin. By the way, the Copilot team's amazing, and I got to tell you, this is just one of these teams that they really want to do what's best for the customer. They have fun doing it. And in Slack, we have the best time. They love emojis. So send emojis their way as well. So as Brent said, this was totally a problem we as developer advocates deal with because we test in multiple regions. IAM is not a region-specific service because I really just did a number here.
You I think you can change the name of the app. Instead of ECS Workshop, use Workshop, and I think that'll get you around this too.
Good point. Let's delete that. It didn't find it here. Yeah, so let's see.
Do app init. Or yeah.
Let's see, that should do it. No, it did ECS Workshop. You know what I'm going to do just to save us some time here? Is I'm just going to switch over to my other region. Or actually, you know what? No.
I think you can delete the workspace.
Let's do that here. Let's go back here. And okay, so that's deleted. I see what you're saying. Let's go back.
The dot workspace directory.
Yep. Sorry, I closed Cloud9. Okay, so go to Copilot.
So while we work on this, let me explain what's happening here. When Copilot, when you answer those questions that it asked us the first time through, it saves that information to a .workspace location. So normally that's super useful, but in this case, in effect, we kind of answered them incorrectly. We named the app a duplicate of an already existing app, and that's causing this problem. So we're going to just come up with a different app name, and then everything else will keep it the same. For you doing the workshop the first time through, you won't have this problem, and this should allow us to work around having that duplicated IAM rule.
You know, and I got to tell you, before I even did this, I was like, I created a new account for this. And I was like, I shouldn't do my test in the new account, but I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And I read through it.
Yep.
This is welcome to my life. Anyway, I think we're good now. Thanks for the tips there, Brent. But again, I think it's important to see these things happen in real time. So you can understand when you run into these issues, where to look, how to react, and how to handle them. So
totally. And we never brought down production.
That's true, right? I still have ECS Workshop running in my other region.
Exactly.
So let's talk about what's happening right now. So I did a Copilot init. Copilot, it recognized there was no app. I didn't have an application defined. It recognized this was a fresh instance now of my application. It created a manifest file for me. The manifest file is where my infrastructure or my application and service is defined. And then it created just a couple of preliminary resources in AWS on my behalf, like an ECR repository. So with my Docker image, I need to store that somewhere. And where we store that is in our Elastic Container Registry service. So did all that for me. Then it asked me, okay, we've done all the prerequisites. Do you want to deploy an environment? Absolutely, I do. So now what's going to happen is Copilot's going to create all of those things we talked about earlier, the VPC, all of the routing tables, security groups, IAM policies, and it's also going ECS cluster, the ECS service. So an ECS service is essentially the way of telling the orchestrator, ECS, how many instantiations of this container do I want running at all times. So it's going to start with a baseline. It's going to start with one, and we'll look at the manifest file when we're done here. But it's going to start with a low level. We'll go through that manifest in a moment, which will kind of add some more color to this. So
Nice.
This takes a few minutes, but when this is all done, what's going to happen is we will have our load balancer, our container with that front end service is going to be running. And what you may notice, if you've gone ahead and you didn't have issues like I did, you may notice that the application doesn't look exactly like we expect, which remember, we expect the application to be that really cool image that shows where we're running. I did that intentionally. So we deployed a broken application. We're going to fix that in just a few moments. So let's I think we'll go away here for a moment. We're going to just let it deploy.
Okay.
And once it's deployed, we'll come back and we'll talk through it.
Awesome. This might be a good time to take a quick break for everyone. If you're rocking along right with us, then you're waiting on your deploy to go as well. So why don't we? I show 2:57 in my time zone. So why don't we come back in about 3 minutes and let's see how things are. We're going to leave this stream up and running and the video running, and we'll leave that screen up. But Adam and I will drop out, and we'll be back in 3 minutes. Right.
Okay, so what's happened while we're gone? It created our environment, created our networking stack, our VPC, ECS cluster, and so on. Now it's building our Docker image. It's going to push that image to that ECR repository, and then it's going to deploy our service. So it's and Brent, we laugh about this, but these images that we're using, they're a little heavy.
A little, yeah. I
We
picked
could
Ruby.
optimize them.
I picked Ruby on purpose because it's big and slow. And so it's the perfect front end, when it comes to later when we want to auto scale, for example. If you have like a super efficient Go app, it's hard to send it enough traffic to generate enough traffic to get it stressed to the point where you need to scale it up. Well, it's not that hard with Ruby, so that's why I picked it. But yeah, on the flip side of that is it ends up being like, almost a 500 meg image and has, tons of gems in it, and it takes a little while to build. Yeah. But that's pretty normal out there when you compare it with, real life stuff. So
absolutely. So in a moment here, we will see, we're going to see our deployment. So, and by the way, I think this happens because I'm zoomed in, so my terminal's all weird.
Yeah.
But it normally doesn't look this funky. So, okay, couple other things. We didn't even talk about like service discovery, for example. So one way for our services to talk to each other, our containers to talk to each other, I can't hard code IP addresses in my code. I don't want to create a hosted zone. There's just so much work involved with that. Copilot will create a service discovery namespace using CloudMap, which is our service discovery service. And that's happening right now. And that's how our services are going to be able to communicate to each other. One thing Copilot does is it exposes a set of default environment variables to my containers, which is really important that I don't have to think when I deploy this, when I deploy my service, I don't have to like think about here's the service discovery namespace. I'm able to use an environment variable, which will tell me what my service discovery namespace is. And that's how I can talk to all my backend services. So Copilot, not only does it simplify by creating all this stuff, but it makes my life a whole lot easier because it knows, we know based off of customer patterns, you're probably going to need this when you're deploying your service. So here it is for you as an environment variable.
Yeah. What's great is these apps that, that we use in this workshop, they existed before Copilot. However, when we brought them into Copilot, it was like, oh yeah, it just worked. No problem.
Yep.
And it kind of solved a couple of that, like service discovery was a great example of something that we were having to kind of figure out and do on our own and make sure that we took care of. And, Copilot now just does that for us too. And therefore we could delete all of our custom code that was doing that.
Oh, it's really, it's nice. It's nice. Yeah. And, something, we didn't even talk about this earlier. But, I see it here. Another thing is I need metrics for my service. I want to know how my service is operating, from a CPU and memory utilization perspective. I want to know what my application logs are telling me.
Yeah, logs.
Copilot,
yes.
Right? Logs are important.
Yeah.
Copilot handles that. Copilot creates the log group for me, uses CloudWatch. So CloudWatch is our metrics and monitoring and logging service. Creates the log group. So logging is set up by default out of the box. And in just a few moments, we'll actually play with some of the Copilot features from the CLI. But really, when you look at Copilot, to me, I look at it as a CLI experience that I never have to leave. If I want to, I can absolutely go to the ECS, the console. I can look up ECS, I can find my cluster, and I can, play around here. But if I don't have to, and if I can stay in one place to deploy my service, to check the status of a pipeline that's deploying to check the logs, check metrics, I'm staying there. I don't want to leave if I don't have to. So Copilot really is super cheesy right now, but it is a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what it was designed to be, and it's, I think, very effective at it. Like I said earlier, I love using Copilot. It's so simple, and it just takes care of all of the stuff that you used to have to do ahead of time just to be able to get your application up and running, and it's doing all of that for us. And yes, we've been now, again, huge Ruby app. We've started from basically zero, from nothing in this account. And, in a matter of, it's been 6 minutes now, we're going to have an app up and running, fully contained and built and stored and everything, all the underlying infrastructure built just to be able to do this. And future Copilot commands will be much faster because they're going to go into this infrastructure that already exists. But I mean, yeah, think about that. Like, you went from nothing to, here it is getting deployed now in 6 minutes. And it used to take me way longer to do each of the pieces, that you have to do just to be able to get your app up and running.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, you scroll up and you look at how we used to do it with like the ECS CLI, like look at all this we had to do.
Yeah.
Like it was a lot.
Oh, look at the platform section and see what all you had. Because remember, we skipped over all of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so you look here and you go to like this, like, oh, it's a CloudFormation template. I'm not going to open that CloudFormation template, but it's a lot.
Right. It's a lot. It's like 500 lines of CloudFormation that you don't have to worry about. And
so look here in the console, or in the CLI, it's telling me, here's my deployment status. I have one desired that container that I want to run, one task, and I have one running. So in a matter of seconds here, it's going to be finished. And then it's going to give me that load balancer URL. We can navigate to that and we'll be able to see our application running. And, there's so much that I could talk about with Copilot. But one thing that I want to mention as well is another question I get a lot is, what happens if I outgrow Copilot? Well, two things. One, I firmly believe that you can stay in Copilot and actually you don't need to ever outgrow it. There is the concept of add-ons, and the idea is if you want to bring in more CloudFormation templates, like you want to build a database, for example. I'm going to talk about something really cool in a minute, but you want to build a database, or you want to, I don't know, build something.
Yeah.
Go to the add-ons directory, pop in your CloudFormation template, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
But we just announced a new update to our storage feature with Copilot, where you can do Copilot storage init, and now you can create an Aurora serverless database with Copilot.
Nice.
So you should have to think about that.
We should add that into this workshop. That would be really cool. We could do a simple database query.
Yeah, and we added. There's so much we add. We move so fast, so it's really cool. But I'm going to go to the URL. Brent, did you want to?
Yeah, I want to turn on the survey. I know we've been going for a little while now. We've made it to the point where, looky there, we have our first app. We have the front end up and running. And so, before, if anyone has to drop out or anything like that, I totally want to. Oh, did I kill the video?
Let's see.
I think so.
No, I see it. I think we're good.
All right. Well, anyway, I wanted to make sure that we enable the survey so that you can leave your feedback before you leave. So it looks like by me turning that survey on, I'm hopefully the video just came back for everyone, but it looks like by me turning the survey on, I may have killed the video. So sorry about that. Don't hate me in the survey.
Be gentle.
So I'll find out how to turn the survey on for everyone. But just bear in mind, you can get to that from the blue button at the bottom of your screen to be able to leave feedback. If you want to, if you want to finish up after we're done here, you're welcome to come back and do this anytime. By the way, this content is all available without the video pop-outs and modals and all that at ecsworkshop.com. So you can always go here. You can send this to your coworkers and that kind of thing, and you'll always be able to get to this content using ecsworkshop.com. So all right, so let's get back to it, Adam.
Thank you. So now we've deployed our app. We see it running, but it's broken because it doesn't have, it's not operating as we expect. So let's first play around with some commands. Let's get a little more familiar with Copilot. So we talked about the concept of an application. So with Copilot, I just did a Copilot app ls just to see what applications I have in my environment, in my account. And then I ran a Copilot app show. So Copilot's able to recognize based on the directory I'm in, it's able to figure out what application it wants to show. So you could see just some basic details. So here's my ECS Workshop application. Here's the environments that I have. So if I wanted to add a production environment, I could see it here. I could do cross account as well. So this is another cool thing that it's very common to have your test environments in one account and your production environments in another. I can link everything cross account as well. Copilot can work on that front. So it tells me what environments they have as well as what services. We can also, let's look at, we'll look at the environment, but really what I want to look at is the actual service itself. So Copilot and ls, I can see here's my test environment, Copilot and show. Here's the details that I have for that environment. So here are my services. Copilot automatically tags my resources as well. This is really important for cost. If you want to just drill down into cost and see what's going on from that perspective in your environment, tags are a great way to be able to see, here's what I have deployed to my test environment and so on. Now for the fun part, we're going to use the Copilot service command. So I'm going to do a list on all my services running. And then let's do a Copilot service show. I'm sorry, let's do this. Copilot service show. Here I'm able to get the details for my front end service. So you can see just kind of the basics. Here's my load balancer URL. Here's my service discovery endpoint. And remember I told you about those environment variables that it exposes automatically. So I'm able to see here's my service discovery endpoint and here's my service name. It's all exposed via those environment variables. Nice. Copilot did that for me. So really nice to just have that. So this is to show kind of the details of the service. Now, if I want to see the status of the service, I can run a status command and I can see here's how many tasks I have running. So a task can be one or many containers that you want to run. I can see the details. Here's the task definition it's pointing to. If I had auto scaling set up, I could see in the alarms here how, if I'm in an auto scaling mode or if I'm healthy where I'm at. So really great way to just drill down from an operational perspective, see the status of my service. If a deployment was happening, I could see the active deployment happening as well here through the status point. So I mentioned auto scaling. We mentioned auto scaling earlier. Let's look at the manifest file really quick. So by default, when you initialize your service, your application, you're going to see it creates the Copilot directory and it creates this manifest file for me. So taking a look at the manifest, it has kind of the configuration that was built by default. And this is where I can add overrides. So if I want to add environment variables to my application, I can do that here. If I want to add secrets, so you can actually create secrets. And Brent mentioned going to to ecsworkshop.com. Sorry, brain stopped working for a moment. If you go to ecsworkshop.com, you can actually, we have a section on working with secrets. So this is where you'll actually be able to see how to create a secret in Secrets Manager and how to work with all of that with Copilot. We're not going to do that today, but if that's something that you're interested in, ECS Workshop should be able to help you there. And then lastly, I can actually set up environment-specific settings for my application. So for my service. So if I want, in my dev environment, I only want one task running, but in production, I want 10 tasks running. I can actually have my override set here as well. Now, we had mentioned auto scaling. So here's where we can set the count of our services, and you can see if I need more CPU and memory, I can increase those as well. By the way, these are all based off of AWS Fargate settings. So Fargate has specific CPU and memory combinations. So I just recommend checking out the Copilot documentation. It'll tell you, here's the CPU and memory combinations you can use. So I could statically set a count of containers if I want here, or I could set auto scaling here. And if I go to the Copilot docs, I'm just kind of doing this off of, let's see here, off of the configure, oops, manifest. So let's see, I know I have scaling somewhere here. But in the docs is where I can get specific information as to how I want to set up auto scaling. But I promise you, it's really easy. I just define the metric that I want to use to scale, and then I set the number of, or what I want that scaling to look like. So we can set thresholds based off of min and max.
I love auto scaling.
It's really nice. So again, if you've dealt with scaling on your own, it's hard. If you've built auto scaling on your own, it's hard.
Right. Yes.
Right. So
in there. How do we fix the app though?
Let's fix the app. I've been talking too much.
I'm concerned.
Thank you. It's broken. We need to fix it. So, by the way, there's a section here on how to scale your apps. I'm not going to do that now, but you could do that as well. Oh, really quick before I scale, I forgot to look at the logs.
Oh yeah.
If you run a Copilot service logs, now obviously I changed my app. I'm able to tail the logs in real time here. So by using the Copilot service command, I can not only see how my service is operating, see the health of the service, but I can also look at the logs in real time. And you can see I got errors here. So we need to fix those. So what we're going to do is I'm not going to create a CI/CD pipeline today, but I promise you it's really easy. If you run through this, there's just some steps. You need to have a GitHub account. You need to create a token. We're not going to go through that today. But Copilot does all the heavy lifting once you have that token created. So what we're going to do here is our application requires IAM role, an IAM role to be, or a policy to be attached to the IAM role that our service has attached to it. Now, right now, we can't do that because we make an API call to EC2. We want to describe the subnets to figure out what subnet we're running in. That's how we're able to derive some of this information. So what I'm going to do is we're going to copy this here and we're going to create an add-on. So I mentioned add-ons earlier. This is where you can add custom cloud formation to do whatever it is that you need to do to expand on your app. And then I'm going to run a Copilot service to deploy. So now from my workstation, from my laptop, or from my Cloud9 workspace, I've added that CloudFormation template, which was simply a policy, and I outputted the policy ARN. That's all I had to do. Copilot will take that ARN, so that's a resource name for the policy that I created, and it's going to automatically attach it to my my service task role for me. Meaning, all I had to do was create that add-on. Copilot will figure out how to add the permissions and sync all that together. So again,
nice.
A little heavy lifting on my part because I had to, and it's very little when I say that, but because I wanted to add this IAM role. but Copilot, again, is smart enough to figure out all of that for me. So in a few moments, what we're going to see is we're going to have a new version of our task definition. It's going to deploy an update to the service, and it's actually going to create another CloudFormation stack with this new policy that I added, and then it's going to do all the syncing for me, and then it's going to redeploy our service.
Nice.
So this will take a couple moments, and then what we should see here is our application will be running, and we should see the picture. Brent, also earlier, I didn't see these 500 IP addresses. I'm not sure what happened here, but
yeah, that may have been me and my bad coding. Sorry about that.
But again, earlier I had it working, but the demo gods today are looking down on me, and they're striking lightning on me and doing all the things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you're doing well.
Thanks, Brent. You're so positive. I appreciate that. But take a look here. We have our deployment running. You can see now I have my new deployment versus my active deployment. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
You're talking about it. I was going to point out the primary versus active and how cool that is to be able to see right here in the console or in the, I guess we'll call this the console too, but like you don't have to go over to the ECS console. You can see everything you need to see right here. Yeah.
I mean, it really is. You don't have to leave the CLI. And if you're developing, like you're working in an ID, you're developing, frankly, you probably may not want, I don't want to say you don't want to, everyone's different, but you may not want to have to go back and forth between the console, the AWS console, and your local workstation. So to be able to have this all in one place while you're working, you don't have to have that context switch. It's all just in the same terminal. So it's kind of a nice experience, I got to say.
Yeah.
So this will probably take a minute or so. But you can see in real time, we're able to track the deployment. So what we should see is our new deployment go from pending to running. Oh, just did right when I said running.
Nice.
I didn't plan that, I swear. And then our active deployment, which is our active service, that will taper off, and then we'll have our new deployment. And eventually what we should see here is our new, hopefully working UI, if I didn't break something else down the road here.
Yeah. Oh, yay.
We fixed it.
So the old one is now draining, and over the course of a few seconds to a minute or two, it'll stop having traffic sent to it, and all the traffic will end up going to the new one.
Yes. So while this goes, I'm going to kind of do a little, actually, we'll move on to the next section, which is now we're going to deploy our backend services. So what I want to do here is I want to kind of just run through these pretty quickly. And again, as I go through them, we have videos here that Brent and I posted. You can watch these videos to see us do it again. We talk a lot, we have fun, we joke, but it's not only is it a good time, but also you can get some additional color to what's happening here as well. So the next steps is we'll deploy our Node.js backend and our Crystal backend. So again, just another benefit of containers is, maybe our front end team likes writing Ruby on Rails, but we have a back end team that they write Node.js. They don't want to write Ruby. And then we have another team that writes in this language that I'd never heard of prior to Brent doing this, which is Crystal Lang.
I had never heard of it either. That's why I picked it. I'm like, I'm going to learn this.
Which is so cool, right? But that's just one of the beauty of running containers is you're not forced to use just one language. It's
you pick the best one. You pick the best one for the job. And, like if you are going to be parsing a ton of JSON, then maybe, you pick Go or you pick Node or something like that. That's like super good at it. And if you're going to be, doing, I don't know, something else, and there's only an SDK available for Python, you pick Python. And so, but the workflow doesn't have to change based on your language. That's the beauty of containers.
Yep. Okay. So now we're going to deploy our two backend services. So again, we're going to do the same thing though, where we're going to follow with the Copilot init. We're going to use our existing application.
Existing application.
Which it's going to recognize that we have one application in this region. That's ECS Workshop for you folks running the workshop. For me, it's ECS Workshop Demo because, I'm crazy and I tested this earlier and broke everything. And then we have the choice, load balanced or backend. So now I'm going to choose a backend service. So Copilot, again, is going to be able to recognize, let me make sure I'm naming that right. I think ECS Demo.
Yes.
Node.js, right?
Correct.
Typo, gross. We need to fix that.
Oh, where?
My bad. You're.
Oh, whoops. Hey, the workshop is open source. There's an edit this page button up at the top. So anyone out there doing this live with us, feel free to walk through. It'll fork it into your GitHub account, open it up in an editor for you, and you can open a pull request that Adam will promptly fix or merge.
Yes.
So this is great.
So okay, so now we're doing the same thing. Again, it asks me questions, guided experience. I'm going to deploy this to the test environment, and it's going to, again, it created the manifest for me, the ECR repository, and now it's going to do the rest. So we have our environment, and so this is the cool thing, is because we're in the same application, Copilot's going to connect all the dots for us.
Yeah.
That we want this service to live in the same service discovery namespace as our front end, so they can talk to each other, right? It's going to make sure that the security groups are there on the right ports so they can talk to each other. All these things that figuring out on your own is, frankly, it can be a pain.
Yeah.
So I've said that like 10 times,
well,
I'm
but
like
it's
a
true.
broken record, but yeah,
it's because you've lived that pain. So
thank you. Yes.
I
feel like I need a shrink to talk about all the pains I've been through with this, with managing, building and doing all this stuff on my own prior to ECS.
It's awesome. So. I can't say it enough. I love managing apps using Copilot because it takes care of all of this for me.
Yes. Okay. So again, it's doing the same stuff. And again, one thing in the workshop is I kind of have it where we create this, broken experience and then we fix it. I should probably just do it to one and not everything, but I'll fix that at some point. But again, I really want to just show that, there's not enough time in this workshop, but if you're doing this on your own, I highly recommend going through creating the CI/CD pipeline, because when you're productionizing this stuff, you shouldn't be doing this from your local workstation, from your laptop, from an IDE. You should have a pipeline. You should be using Git as the mechanism to submit your changes, as a pull request. Once they're approved and merged, let the pipeline run tests on your code that you define. Let it do the deployment for you. So you have that history of who made the change, how it was deployed, rather than having to try to figure out who did this from their laptop, when did they do it.
Right.
That's no fun.
Well, let's talk about that for just a second. Just the developer experience when you are using a CI/CD pipeline that Copilot built. You have it all built. Let's just fast forward to the pipeline exists. You've been using it and you've pushed some code that's bad. You did like I did, where you repeated the IP address 3 times and you're like, I got to fix that. So the first thing you might want to do is troubleshoot. So you would CD into your code repo, wherever it's checked out. And if you have Copilot, then all you have to do is, and by the way, I've seen container health check fail a couple times. It'll go back healthy in a second. Probably another, bad code thing on my part. But yeah, if you want to troubleshoot, then you can use Copilot to pull the logs, and you can tail the logs and see the latest, logs as they're happening, and that can help you troubleshoot. Then you can, if you really want to, you can, we haven't even shown this, but Copilot Exec into the containers, and you can get into the live environment and look and see what's happening and that kind of stuff. Oh, look, our front end is fixed. That's nice.
Yeah, it's super pretty. We can see our Git hash, what availability zone we're running in, IP address.
Nice.
And, and so you can see here, this was just telling us the failure event. Like this is what's really cool is it said, hey, we had one failed task. And by the way, also in that pipeline, as Brent was saying, if something fails, I can see when I look at with the Copilot CLI, I can look at the status of the failure. I can see what happened. So we're able to have one spot where we can track, here was the change, here was the failure that happened here. We know what we need to fix.
Yeah. And I guess where I'm going with that is day to day, as you're pushing code, you're probably, especially once you have that pipeline set up, you're probably not going to be sitting here like we are, actively monitoring and looking at the Copilot output to see what's happening and how long it's taking and stuff like that. You're going to push code and you're going to go grab a cup of coffee. And, eventually your code is going to make its way out and you'll just see that happen. And, great. That's what we expected to happen. So it's only really when something goes wrong that you might, come back and try and check things out. And that's where I think Copilot especially shines, is being able to give you that CLI experience and all that, set of tools that you'll need when you're going through that.
Absolutely. So now I'm just running through deploying our services, our backend services. And so we have the Node.js, it finished deploying, but remember it's broken. So we don't see it here yet, but now I pushed my fix and locally I just ran a deploy. So in a few moments, we'll see our backend. And then in parallel, I'm also deploying our backend Crystal service.
Perfect.
So in, maybe let's say the next 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to have our backend services up and running, and we should see that our UI is working. And as a bonus, maybe I will just do a Copilot service exec into one of our containers for funsies.
Nice.
So yeah, this will take a few moments, but again,
Crystal's fast.
Cool. Yeah. And so, the application's broken. We recognize that. We add the IAM policy in our add-ons directory. We Copilot service deploy, and we push the fix, and everything will be up and running. And we should have a really pretty, beautiful application.
Nice.
So
should we scale these up just so we get the fancy animation?
Absolutely. So let's do that. I'm going to open up another terminal, and I'm going to go to ECS demo front end. I'm going to modify the Copilot manifest YAML. And here we're going to go to count. And count will be...
Let's just do 2.
I'm going to do 3.
All right.
And then I'm going to do a Copilot service deploy. I'm a rebel, okay?
It's all good.
No one tells me what to do. I'm just kidding. Anyways, so the nice thing was there was no change to our Docker file, so nothing had to change there. So what's going to happen is Copilot's going to update our service. It's going to say we want 3 replicas. And in our front end, we will see this start to bounce around.
Yeah.
So again, just takes a couple of minutes. So let's see. We have our new version of our backend service running. So at some point here, our front end is going to see that Node.js backend, and we should start to see that show up here in the image as well.
Yeah. In Discord, there's a question that popped in from Neil. What happens if you run deploys in parallel? And Austin's picking up the answer, but he says, ideally nothing. And I think he means nothing goes wrong. Hopefully it does deploy. But we have some custom resources which are designed to back off and retry if they need to make a change to the same CloudFormation resource at once. And each service is represented by its own CloudFormation stack. So there are some cross-regional resources which get created using stack sets, and those might be the place where conflicting changes could arise. but they work to try and make sure that never happens. And I can tell you in my experience, especially when doing this workshop, what we just did, deploying the two backends at basically the same time, I've never run into an issue with it. So, and if you think about it, normally you're going to be, you're a developer team, you're working on your application, but you're probably only changing one microservice at a time. So it's, it should work itself out, it should work out to be fine. Other teams might also be working as well, but they are different applications. And so really the only chance for collision is within that one application, right? So if you're, like I said, I like to map teams to the application. And so if you're on a team together, it's probably really easy to coordinate and figure out, like who's doing what when. But even if you don't, chances are really low that it would cause any kind of a problem. And with the way CloudFormation works, the problem would only be coming up. It shouldn't conflict or cause any kind of harm to anything that's already running. So you shouldn't take out production.
And another thing is we use code pipeline for our CI/CD. So, if I merge a change, then I merge another change. Essentially, it's just
it's going to stand in line. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would basically be the case there. So,
I see we have two front ends.
Yep. So,
or three actually, because I'm seeing 3 IP addresses rotating through.
Yep. And I think this brings up a question that someone may ask, which is, well, you have 3 availability zones, but I see it's only running in 2. Well, that's okay, because the idea is we are spanned across 3 availability zones. If the need arises, as we scale out, we most likely will. Go ahead. You were going to say
something. No. We actually, if we go and look, it only built 2 availability zones for us.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this is just me and my application design and poor coding, that I built it fully expecting to be in 3 AZs. So it's only when we're doing it this way, it comes up in 2. But 2 is all you need for resiliency, right? Absolutely. So that's what we're wanting to account for, and we can be 100% good to go. As long as we're not in only 1 AZ. So being in 2 checks that box, fills that need for us.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we are highly available at this point.
Right.
Yeah, and we're spanned across the 2 availability zones. And so we have our services deployed. So let's just quickly deploy our fix for our Crystal service, our Crystal backend. And in a few moments, we should be good. So this will just take a couple minutes here. Okay. So also, in our app, we had in our front end, because I kind of deviated a little bit by changing the app name, we have our service discovery actually hard coded in the app. We need to fix that as well.
Oh, crap. Yes.
To use the Copilot environment variables that are available to us. So I fixed that. In what I did was I went to the manifest. So Copilot, ECS demo front end, manifest. You can see here, I just changed it here so we can talk to.
Yeah, good call out. And anyone doing this on their own in their own account probably shouldn't have to do that, because, oh, look.
Yeah. So there we go. I guess somehow
we broke talking to the metadata service or something.
We broke something.
Yes.
But what you can see here is our front end is now able to talk to the back end services. and it's running.
Yeah,
as we
it's getting a
expect here.
response from each of those backend services.
Yep.
So that's awesome.
So there we have it. That's pretty much the workshop. Now at this point, I think we can. Oh, go ahead.
Let's exec.
That's what I was gonna say.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry.
No, it's good. So, so we talked about exec earlier. So you have the ability to actually enter your container without the need to enable SSH. Manage SSH keys, figure out how to SSH in a container. That's all real nasty stuff.
It's worth mentioning, just if, for anyone that's somewhat new to containers on AWS, that again, we said it at the beginning, but we'll say it again here. These are all running out on Fargate, which means there's no underlying EC2 instance. So think about that for what we're about to do. We're about to drop you into a shell inside your container, and we're going to do that without asking you to SSH into your EC2 instance first, because there isn't an EC2 instance. So that is what Copilot Exec does for us.
So what we should be able to do right now is just run a Copilot service exec. And what you can see is, again, Copilot's smart enough to tell me you don't have all the tools you need installed locally. So I need a session manager plugin. So without getting too deep into the weeds here, the way ECS exec works, or Copilot exec works, is it uses systems manager, session manager. It's an AWS service that essentially allows us to remotely access our environment or our tasks, our containers, without having to SSH. So we needed a plugin installed, so I installed that. Now it's going to ask me, which container do I want to enter? So we can go into the front end. You can see here I am. So now I am in the container. I mean, I could edit things if I want to. It looks like we have one bad one here in the bunch too.
Yeah, that old Ruby app.
But now see, so I'm in my app. I can see everything that exists. I can run a PS. You can see here's our Rails app running. But this is really, I would say execing into your containers should always be a last resort, especially if this is like a production application. You shouldn't be jumping in and modifying things on the fly. This is really for those, if it's a dev environment, by all means, feel free, go nuts, get in there, play around, see what you need to do. But if it's production, this should be something's not working. My logs aren't giving me everything I need. Metrics aren't giving me exactly what I need. I need to get in there and see what's happening. So this is like that break glass scenario, right?
Yeah, you might want to tweak one little setting, or change one little thing just to see what the net effect is. And then if you like it, you go back and you add it into your code and sort of backfill what you figured out.
Exactly. And another really cool thing about this exec feature is I didn't have to install anything, like any additional packages into my container or my Docker image.
Yeah.
So behind the scenes, what we're doing is we're actually bind mounting the SSM binaries to ensure that we have the proper binaries running so you can exec in. I mean, super cool. You didn't have to do anything. It's just we do all the crazy work for you. So anyway, that's really it.
Nice.
I think at this point, let's see, maybe I'll scale back down to 1. But Brent, what do you think? Any other thoughts or questions? What do you think?
I think we've accomplished a lot. And if you think about it, we talked about just what is a container and what is it good for. We talked about packaging and distribution. And then we got right into deploying our application. We deployed a front end. We deployed 2 back ends. They were all broken. We fixed them all, and then redeployed everything. So we got to see a lot happen here. We didn't have to build our underlying infrastructure. That was taken care of for us by Copilot. We looked at how you can view logs. We looked at execing into the container if you want to troubleshoot stuff. So, definitely check out, if you want to continue down this journey, check out ecsworkshop.com and, take advantage of that credit code that's giving you free credit so that you can continue to explore in your own account. If you think this is something that you want to try out with your own containers, your own microservices, then absolutely check it out. I think Copilot is an awesome direction to explore.
Definitely. And if you ever have any questions, we get past the workshop, or we're done today, and then something comes up, you can see here we have our Twitter handles. You can reach out to Brent at Brent Contained or at Real Adam J. Keller. Any questions, we're here to help. Also, the Copilot team is super hands-on and helpful too. So you can go to the GitHub repo, open up an issue. If something's not working as you expect, we're here to help.
Absolutely. So they love hearing feedback. They love, answering issues. So definitely reach out to them if there's something specific to Copilot. And last but not least, there is a survey. So I want to make sure that we hit that survey before you leave. We're, right at the end of our time here. So I want to bring that back to your attention. So definitely take the exit survey. It's in the blue button. So you can find the blue button, take the exit survey. And if you think that we did less than 5, then definitely leave us some feedback and fill in the blank and let us know what we could do to improve, to be better.
Yeah, hopefully, but feel free to still give us a 5.
Yes. Hopefully you enjoyed this and you found it useful, and we're looking forward to your feedback. So with that, we'll be around on Discord. Oh, Adam.
One more thing.
Oh, okay.
Don't forget to go to the cleanup section. So when you're all done,
good. Thank you.
Be sure to clean up. Just so you don't pay for resources you're not using. So there's a cleanup section. Also, one other thing I want to mention. Go through the workshop on your own. We do also touch on the AWS CDK as well. So there's more advanced use cases, or if you like to be more hands-on with your infrastructure and how you deploy things, and you like to do it as code, like in Python, in Go, Node, take a look at the CDK section as well. But also we have other sections in the workshop that dive into other kind of areas of working with containers in ECS. So anyways, but awesome. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you spending the time with us today.
Awesome. Thank you. We're going to be around in Discord for another 10 or so minutes if any last minute questions come in. Otherwise, really enjoyed doing this for everyone, and I look forward to the next one. So thanks, everyone.